Greetings and welcome to PinballHelp. Mike here. Today I am working on a Sega South Park. This is a game that I guess Stern acquired Sega and they eventually took over the production on these things. And got some interesting things happening with this game. I'm going to show you what's going on. I've kind of been going over it little by little. There's all kinds of little things that are wrong with this machine. It's been on route. It's lived a very hard life. But there are some people in our group that for some strange reason really like this game. So they've been begging me to get it working again. So I've been going through the game, fixing a few things here and there. Just replaced this switch right here. Sega's switches are quite interesting. You know, they have these, and I'm not really super familiar with them, but they have these big plastic switches, which are these big assemblies. They're not like what you would normally expect from a switch, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. They come in these bags here, and they're like a whole switch thing made out of plastic with the connectors on, and there's like two little trifocon connectors. So the whole switch is like this plastic assembly. I have to assume that they didn't work all that well in the long run, and they ended up replacing these things. I took one of them apart just to see how it worked, and this is the old one that was broken, and it's basically just a plastic assembly. Here's where it broke off, and then there's the button with the connectors on it, and that right there is what the plastic pushes against. So that's the actual button. It's a little soldered onto a little board with these pins, and the trifocon pins connect to that. I'm curious to know in the long run whether they were more problem than they were worth, you know, with those connectors, because usually in modern pinball machines all the switches are soldered into the circuit. So just another possible point of failure. I haven't run into the connectors coming loose as much as these things just breaking off. They're just, you know, they get hit pretty hard. But let me show you what's going on with this game. I'm going to turn it on and you'll see what I'm talking about. The game's exhibiting an odd problem. So turn the machine on. Come up. There it is. And when I turn the game on, it kicks the balls out into play. So it kicked 4 balls out. And you'll notice that it says install 5 balls. So what's going on there? It kicked 4 balls out. It says install 5 balls. Now watch when I press the start button. Look on the screen and see what happens. Too many balls. It says too many balls. So what's the deal? You see 4 balls, but it says too many balls. Well, there's actually 5 balls in the game, but it kicked 4 of them out, and then it said there was too many. There was 5. What is up with that? Well, that is a sign of some kind of an opto error. Something going on in the game where it is losing track of how many balls are in the game. So let's take a look at the game a little bit more closely, see if we can diagnose what's going on here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the cabinet up. I'm going to turn the game on, and I'm going to hit the coin door switches down here, and I'm going to go into the switch test menu. Okay. So this shows what switches are happening, right? And there's a way here where it'll identify which switches are actually being triggered right now. So let's see. Okay. So this shows the active switches right now. So we've got 4 balls in the game. I'll just drop the 5th ball. So I know there's 5 balls in the game. And these are the switches in the matrix that are lighting. Now we've got a couple of problems. The Kenny opto is malfunctioning. And there's an opto in here. And I can see it's lit though. So I have to assume maybe the receiver is out. So we've got switch 14, 15, 42 is the Kenny opto. The right coin switch is down too. I'm going to have to take a look at that one. But the trough switches, so you have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So let's count that. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There are 6 trough switches that are triggered. So that's why it's thinking there's 5 balls in the game, because there shouldn't be 6 trough switches. So let's go through, let's kick the balls out and see how things switch. So I'm going to reach underneath the playfield, kick one ball out. So now so now 10 is not lit. So now it's 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So let's just keep kicking them out. All right, so now we've got 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so they're going out as we expect. Take the third ball out. 13, 14, 15. 13, 14, 15. Okay, so let's kick out ball number 4. All right. 14, 15. 14, 15. So those, as we kick balls out, the switches are going out. Now, optos are normally closed. So when the ball blocks the beam, that's when it goes open. And that's what triggers it, a switch hit. So let's kick out ball number 5. All right. And just to be safe, that's it. Okay, so all 5 balls are out, and what we're seeing is switch 14 and 15 are still triggered. That should not be. So what is switch 14 and 15? So if we look at my very crude copy of the switch matrix here, we can see that 10, 11, 12, and 13 are actually rollover switches. 14 and 15 are optos that are in the ball trough in the vertical up kicker. Now, why are there 2 optos in there? Because number 15 is called the stacking opto. That means that it can this game can sense if there's 2 balls in the up kicker instead of 1, because it's possible that, I guess, 2 of them could fall into there. So it's just, that's how it identifies it. So there's 2 optos here, and they are both, these 2 optos right here are both switching. So either the transmitter or the receiver board or the optos are out on those 2 things. So that's confusing the game. So let's go down here and let's take a look at this the trough switch. Now we've got 2 other switches that are lit that shouldn't be lit. So we'll deal with those later, but we know 14 and 15 are a problem. So let's lift the playfield up carefully because the power's on. Let's take a look at things. All right. Now let me see if I can get the camera down here so you can see what I see. Okay. Maybe I should just flip the whole playfield up. It might be easier. Let me see. Always cautious. Don't want to hit the wrong thing with one of these guys. Okay. All right. So now we're looking at the underside of the playfield. And what we're looking at is right there. Okay. So there's two optos here and 2 on the other side. Now if you look closely, you can see they're lit. On the left side, let me bring the camera around a little bit. You can actually see the 2 optos right there. And I wonder what happens if I turn the light off. Let me try this. So you can see the 2 lights and their reflection. I guess Stern didn't use infrared. Those are just regular LEDs. So this is kind of convenient. You can tell what the transmitters are and what the receivers are. With some optos, they're infrared and they're not in the visible spectrum. Although I guess on the camera, this camera might pick up infrared if it was. But you can actually see these optos. Another way to tell what's the transmitter and which is the receiver is you look, there's a board on either side here. And one board has 2 wires going to it, and one board has 3 wires. The transmitters only need power. That's all they need because they're just on all the time. So that's the one with the 2 wires too. This board has 3, so we know these are the receivers. So I don't know what's going on here because we're seeing the lights come. So I have to assume these transmitters, the receivers may be out because the transmitters are lit up, and I can see they're lit up. Now here's something interesting. Let's unplug the connector to the receivers. All right, come loose. All right, when I do that, the switches go out. I have to assume, and if we look over there on the board, you can see right over there, it no longer shows 14 and 15 active. So apparently when you cut power to these things, they trigger the switches off. I don't know why that is. I would kind of almost expect it. See, I plugged it back in. Now it's showing 14 and 15 again. So I'm going to pull this board and take a look at it, see what's wrong with it. I'm not a super expert on Sega opto boards, but I'll turn this off. And let's pull this board and see if we can figure out what might be wrong. The transmitters are working because I can see them working. So this board I'm not so sure about. So let's disconnect it and then pull it out. Now, the ball trough is a very violent area of the game, so it's not unusual that you're going to see component failure down here because there's just a lot of things bouncing and banging. So here's our there's our opto receiver board right there. And, is it going to go in focus? I don't know. But there it is. So there is our opto receiver board. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on I'm going to put it on the bench and take a look at it and see if I can figure out if there's anything wrong with it. Check some of these connections, and then we'll be back and we'll see. I do have some receivers that I can solder in if these guys are bad. I see some other surface mount components on here, so I'll take a look at this and see what might be happening. So stay tuned for more, but we're going to be diagnosing these faulty optos.